What if the real reason you feel overwhelmed, drained, or taken for granted isn't bad luck, a demanding job, or even difficult relationships, but the absence of something you can't see, invisible fences, lines that define where your responsibility ends and someone else's begins? Most people live boundaryless lives, saying yes when they mean no, taking on guilt that doesn't belong to them, and burning out under the weight of responsibilities that aren't theirs to carry. Today, we're diving into Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, a groundbreaking book that shows us how to reclaim our lives, protect our energy, and love others without losing ourselves. In this summary, we'll break down the book into its three main sections. 1. What are boundaries? Understanding what they are, how they're formed, and why they matter. 2. Boundary conflicts. What happens when family, friends, spouses, children, work, or even faith cross the lines. 3. Developing healthy boundaries. Practical strategies to build and maintain boundaries for a healthier, more fulfilling life. By the end, you'll know exactly what boundaries look like, why they're not selfish, and how to use them to transform your relationships and your well-being. Part 1. What are boundaries? Chapter 1. A Day in a Boundaryless Life. The book opens with a vivid, almost exhausting snapshot of Sherry's day. From the moment her alarm clock rings, her life is a whirlwind of obligations. Children who won't listen, a boss who piles work on her at the last minute, a friend who only calls when in crisis, and a mother who manipulates her with guilt. Sherry runs on empty, yet feels unable to stop because she fears letting others down. She is the dependable one, the reliable one, the person everyone turns to, but at the cost of her own peace, joy, and identity. Her story is not unique. Many of us recognize parts of Sherry in our own lives. Maybe we've stayed late at work again because our boss dropped their problem onto our desk. Maybe we've agreed to family obligations we didn't want to attend, fearing rejection if we declined. Or maybe we've listened endlessly to a friend's struggles without ever having our own pain acknowledged. Sherry shows us the danger of living boundaryless. It leads to exhaustion, resentment, and a sense that life is out of control. Without boundaries, we live at the mercy of other people's agendas. Chapter 2. What does a boundary look like? Boundaries are like invisible property lines. Just as a fence marks where your yard ends and your neighbor's begins, personal boundaries define where your responsibilities stop and someone else's start. They help us take ownership of what is ours, our feelings, our thoughts, our choices, while making it clear that we cannot control or be responsible for someone else's. The authors explain that boundaries aren't about selfishness or cutting people off. They're about protection and clarity. Think of boundaries as fences with gates. They keep out what is harmful but allow in what is good. They allow love, kindness, and truth to flow freely, while blocking guilt, manipulation, or abuse. Boundaries don't build walls that isolate. Instead, they make relationships safer and more honest. The Bible reinforces this concept. Proverbs urges us to guard our hearts, for everything we do flows from it. Boundaries are that guard. Without them, our inner life becomes unprotected, vulnerable to being trampled by the needs and demands of others. Chapter 3. Boundary Problems. Not all boundary struggles look the same. The authors describe 4 common types of unhealthy patterns. Compliance. These are people who cannot say no. Out of fear of rejection, guilt, or disapproval, they comply with others' demands, even when it harms them. Avoidance. These individuals avoid responsibility for their own needs, refusing to ask for help or receive care, even when good things are offered. Controllers. These people push past others' limits, using charm, force, or manipulation to get what they want. They don't recognize or respect the word no. Non-responsives. These are people who neglect or dismiss the needs of others, refusing to carry their share of responsibility in relationships. Many of us are mixtures of these categories, sometimes saying yes when we should say no, sometimes pushing others, sometimes avoiding our own needs. Recognizing where we struggle is the first step in developing healthy boundaries. Chapter 4. How boundaries are developed. Boundaries, or the lack of them, often takes shape in childhood. A child who grows up in a home where saying no is punished or expressing feelings is discouraged will struggle to develop a healthy sense of self. Parents who over-control or who neglect their children both contribute to weak boundaries. Yet, boundaries can be learned at any stage of life. Even if our upbringing left us without clear limits, as adults we can practice setting boundaries by recognizing our feelings and acknowledging them as valid, learning to say no without guilt, taking ownership of our choices rather than blaming others, allowing others to experience the consequences of their actions. Boundaries are not automatic. They are taught, tested, and strengthened through practice. The encouraging truth is that no matter our background, we can grow in this area. Chapter 5, The 10 Laws of Boundaries. Cloud and Townsend outline 10 biblical principles that govern boundaries. A few key ones include the law of sowing and reaping. If someone continually avoids responsibility, they should also experience the natural consequences. When we shield them, we prevent growth. The law of responsibility. We are responsible for ourselves, our actions, our choices, but not for controlling others. The law of power. We don't have the power to change other people, only ourselves. True change begins with what we can control. The law of respect. If we want others to honor our boundaries, we must honor theirs. The law of evaluation. Setting a boundary may hurt someone's feelings, but it does not harm them. There is a difference between hurting and harming. These laws dismantle the idea that love requires endless sacrifice. Instead, they reveal that love is healthiest when rooted in truth and responsibility. Chapter 6, Common Boundary Myths. Finally, the authors tackle the myths that keep people trapped. Many believe boundaries are selfish. If I set limits, I'm not being loving. Boundaries mean I'll be abandoned. Saying no means I'm disobeying God's command to serve. The truth? Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about loving more honestly. When we set boundaries, we are free to give without resentment, to say yes when we mean it, and to say no when we must. Far from being selfish, boundaries are an act of integrity. They allow us to love others without losing ourselves. Part 2, Boundary Conflicts. Chapter 7, Boundaries and Your Family. Family is where boundary issues are most deeply rooted and hardest to navigate. Parents often have expectations of lifelong influence, sometimes crossing into control, even after their children are adults. For example, a mother might guilt her grown daughter for not visiting every weekend, or a father might demand financial help without regard for his child's circumstances. Siblings, too, can exert unhealthy pressure, manipulating each other with guilt or obligation. The authors emphasize that honoring parents does not mean obeying them without limits as an adult. Mature love respects parents while also creating space for independence. The key is learning to say no firmly yet kindly, making it clear that love remains, but unhealthy control will not be tolerated. Healthy family boundaries allow for connection without enmeshment, care without control, and respect without fear. Chapter 8, Boundaries and Your Friends. Friendship is built on freedom and choice, not compulsion. Yet friendships can suffer when one person consistently takes and the other consistently gives. Some friends dominate conversations, constantly drain energy, or manipulate with guilt. Others disappear when needed most. Without boundaries, we find ourselves resentful, wondering why the relationship feels one-sided. Boundaries in friendships mean speaking up when things are unfair, refusing to tolerate manipulation, and choosing friends who respect mutual limits. The authors point out that true friends will respect your no. If someone withdraws or retaliates when you set limits, they may not be a genuine friend. Healthy friendships are reciprocal. Each person takes responsibility for their own needs and also supports the other when appropriate. Chapter 9, Boundaries and Your Spouse. Marriage often confuses people about boundaries because of the two shall become one teaching. While intimacy requires closeness, it does not erase individuality. Each spouse still has personal responsibilities, preferences, and limits. Problems arise when one partner tries to control or dominate the other, or when enmeshment makes it impossible to distinguish where one ends and the other begins. The author stressed that healthy marriages are built on freedom and respect. Boundaries in marriage allow for love without control, intimacy without fear, and partnership without loss of identity. For example, one spouse may say, "I love you, but I cannot support this behavior," and stand firm. This doesn't divide the marriage, it protects it. Intimacy thrives when both partners are free to say yes or no honestly. Chapter 10. Boundaries and your children. Children learn responsibility and self-control through boundaries. Without limits, they grow into entitled adults who struggle to function independently. Parents who give in to tantrums, shield children from consequences, or micromanage every decision unintentionally harm their development. Healthy parental boundaries mean saying no when necessary, allowing children to experience the results of their choices, and teaching them that responsibility is not optional. Boundaries provide structure, security, and clarity. For instance, a teenager who refuses to study may face the natural consequence of poor grades. A younger child who hits others may lose privileges. By enforcing boundaries, parents equip children with the skills they need to thrive as adults. Chapter 11. Boundaries and work. Workplaces are breeding grounds for boundary problems. Bosses overload employees, colleagues shift responsibilities, and workers feel unable to say no. Many employees live in fear of losing their jobs or damaging their reputations, so they overcommit until burnout takes over. The authors explain that boundaries at work require clear communication and courage. This might mean declining additional projects when your plate is full, refusing to cover for a chronically irresponsible coworker, or requesting clarity on expectations. Healthy boundaries don't make you lazy or uncooperative. They make you more effective and sustainable. People who manage their workload wisely ultimately contribute more to their organizations than those who collapse under endless demands. Chapter 12. Boundaries and yourself. Often, the hardest boundaries to enforce are with ourselves. We may indulge harmful habits, procrastinate, or overcommit because we cannot regulate our own choices. Without self-boundaries, external boundaries collapse quickly. For example, if you can't control your time, others will control it for you. If you cannot say no to your impulses, you will struggle to say no to people. Developing self-boundaries means practicing self-discipline, taking responsibility for your feelings, and making intentional choices. It requires rejecting destructive patterns, whether addiction, procrastination, or unhealthy relationships, and cultivating healthier habits. The authors stress that self-control is one of the fruits of the Spirit, meaning God designed us to live with discipline and ownership of our lives. Chapter 13. Boundaries and God. Perhaps the most surprising chapter addresses boundaries in our relationship with God. Many people think spirituality means endless giving, self-denial, and allowing others to use them in the name of love. But the Bible presents a different picture. God created limits, observed rest, and designed humans to live with responsibility. The authors emphasize that God does not call us to boundaryless living. Jesus himself withdrew from crowds to rest and pray. God respects human freedom, even when we misuse it. In the same way, we must respect our limits and not confuse endless sacrifice with holiness. Boundaries with God mean understanding that He values stewardship of our time, energy, and resources. By setting limits, we honor Him and live in alignment with His design for human flourishing. Part 3. Developing healthy boundaries. Chapter 14. Resistance to boundaries. When people first begin to set boundaries, they often encounter strong resistance. This resistance can come from those around them and from within themselves. Friends or family who are accustomed to your constant yes may feel threatened by your new no. They may accuse you of being selfish, cold, or unloving. Employers may push back, questioning your loyalty. Children may throw tantrums when you enforce limits. Even your own inner voice may flood you with guilt and fear, whispering that you are letting people down or risking rejection. The authors remind us that resistance is a natural reaction, not a sign you are doing something wrong. Boundaries disrupt dysfunctional patterns, and dysfunction rarely yields quietly. Think of it like resetting a broken bone. The process is painful, but it is the only way to heal properly. By standing firm through the pushback, you're teaching others to interact with you in healthier ways. Over time, consistent boundaries create relationships marked by respect rather than resentment. Chapter 15: How to Measure Success with Boundaries. How do you know if boundaries are working? Success isn't measured by everyone being happy with you. In fact, one measure of success is that some people may initially be unhappy when you set limits. The true markers of healthy boundaries are internal peace, emotional clarity, and freedom. When boundaries are in place, you begin to notice changes in yourself. You no longer feel crushed under guilt for saying no. You can give freely without hidden resentment. You feel empowered to make choices instead of controlled by others' demands. You find relationships shifting toward honesty and respect. Externally, some relationships may improve as people learn to respect your limits. Others may grow distant, revealing that they were never based on genuine care, but on exploitation of your compliance. The authors stress that this pruning process is healthy. It leaves you with fewer, but deeper, more authentic connections. The ultimate measure of boundary success is whether you can love freely, without fear, guilt, or compulsion. Chapter 16: A Day in a Life with Boundaries. To close, the book paints a picture of what life looks like when boundaries are firmly established. Imagine starting your day without dread, knowing that your time is structured around your priorities rather than everyone else's emergencies. At work, you focus on tasks you're responsible for, delegating or declining what is unreasonable. You engage with friends and family not out of guilt, but out of genuine desire. When someone tries to manipulate you, you calmly say no and move forward without lingering guilt. In this life, your children learn responsibility because you allow them to experience consequences. Your spouse respects your individuality, and intimacy deepens because both of you can be honest without fear. Your relationship with God becomes more vibrant as you realize He never asked you to live boundaryless. He asks you to be faithful with what He entrusted to you. You end your day tired, perhaps, but not depleted, because your energy went to what truly mattered. Boundaries teaches us that love without limits is not love at all. It's a slow erosion of the self. Boundaries don't push people away. They make true connection possible. By defining where you end and others begin, you can finally stop carrying burdens that aren't yours, reclaim your energy, and live with freedom and purpose. So ask yourself, what do you need to draw the line? And more importantly, are you ready to protect it? If you found this summary helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use stronger boundaries in their life. And remember, sometimes the most loving word you can say is no.